February 14th, 1929. A cold morning in Chicago. From inside a garage, 7 gunshots tear through the silence. And then nothing. When the police arrive, what they find becomes one of the most chilling scenes in the city's history. But here's the real question. Before the city ever heard those gunshots, what quiet, calculated move did Al Capone's organization make behind closed doors? A move that would push Chicago's criminal underworld to the very edge of all-out war? Welcome back. Today, we travel to the Chicago of the 1920s, a city caught in a strange contradiction. Alcohol was illegal, but the thirst for it never went away. And wherever there's demand, someone will always find a way to supply it, no matter how dangerous that way might be. This demand gave birth to 2 powerful criminal empires. On one side stood Al Capone's organization, known as the Outfit, controlling the south side of the city. On the other stood George "Bugs" Moran's North Side gang, ruling the northern territories. The rivalry between them wasn't new. It had been simmering for years, growing colder, sharper, and more dangerous with every passing season. But in early 1929, something happened that gave this tension the perfect excuse to explode. Capone's people discovered that Moran's gang had been repeatedly hijacking their liquor shipments, right under their noses. And every hijacking was more than just a financial loss. It was a public insult. For a gangster, reputation isn't just pride, it's currency. It's power. So the question became unavoidable. How would Capone respond this time? This is where the secret move begins, the one that would later be written into criminal history. Capone's inner circle started crafting a plan, and the defining feature of this plan was silence. No one could know, not the police, not rival gangs, and certainly not Moran's own men. At the heart of the scheme was a trap disguised as an opportunity. Moran's men were offered a tempting deal, a large shipment of cheap, high-quality whiskey, to be delivered at a specific garage. The location chosen was the SMC Cartage Company garage on North Clark Street. A date was set. A time was fixed. But what nobody on the other side knew was that there was no whiskey coming at all. What was coming was an ambush. Now picture it. Early morning, the 17th of February, men gathering inside that garage, waiting, expecting a profitable deal to walk through the door. They had no idea that the very ground they stood on had already been chosen as a stage, set for something far darker. At around 10:30 that morning, a police car pulled up outside the garage. To anyone watching from the street, it looked routine. Officers in uniform stepping out, walking calmly toward the building. But these were not real police officers. They were men dressed to look like the law, men who understood exactly how to use that disguise to make their targets lower their guard. Inside, Moran's men saw the uniforms and did exactly what they were trained to do. They didn't run. They didn't reach for their weapons. They assumed it was just another raid, the kind they had seen dozens of times before. They lined up against the wall, hands raised, expecting questions, expecting arrests, expecting, at worst, a night in a cell. What they got instead were submachine guns. In less than a minute, the room was filled with gunfire. 7 men fell. 6 of them died almost instantly. The killers, still dressed as police, walked 2 of their own men out at gunpoint, as if making an arrest, climbed back into their car, and disappeared into the city traffic. No alarms, no chase, just silence, and 7 bodies left behind on a concrete floor. When real police officers arrived minutes later, they were met with a scene that would shake the entire country. Blood pooled across the garage floor. Shell casings scattered like confetti from hell. And lying among the dead was a German shepherd, chained to a truck, the only living witness to what had just happened. The press called it the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and within hours, it was front-page news across America. But here's the part that still haunts historians today. Despite overwhelming suspicion pointing toward Capone, despite the fact that this murder bore every mark of his organization's calculated brutality, no one was ever convicted for the killings. Capone himself was hundreds of miles away in Florida that morning, and he had witnesses, alibis, and lawyers ready to prove it. The men who pulled the triggers were never definitively identified in court. The trail went cold, buried under fear, silence, and the unwritten rule of the underworld, that some secrets are worth dying to protect. So what did this single, secretive move actually accomplish? In the short term, it crippled the North Side gang. Bugs Moran, who was running late that morning and never even entered the garage, escaped death by sheer chance. But his organization never fully recovered. Capone's grip on Chicago's bootlegging empire tightened. But in a deeper sense, this massacre changed something far bigger than one gang war. It turned public opinion against organized crime in a way that years of smaller incidents never had. The scale of the violence, the cold-blooded use of fake police uniforms, the image of men gunned down with their hands raised. It shocked a nation that had grown almost numb to gang violence. And it placed Al Capone, whether directly responsible or not, permanently at the center of America's fight against organized crime. A fight that would eventually bring him down, not for murder, but for something far less dramatic: tax evasion. And maybe that's the strangest twist in this entire story. The man whose organization may have orchestrated one of the bloodiest single events in American gangland history was never punished for it. He walked free from this massacre, only to be imprisoned years later over unpaid taxes. Justice, it seems, doesn't always arrive through the door you expect. So here's a question worth sitting with. When a single secret decision, made quietly behind closed doors, can change the fate of an entire city, how many other turning points in history have we never even heard about? How many massacres, how many empires, how many downfalls began not with a gunshot, but with a quiet conversation in a locked room? If this story made you think, even for a moment, about how silence and secrecy can shape history more than violence itself, let that sit with you. Because somewhere, right now, another quiet decision is probably being made, one that the world won't understand the weight of until it's already too late.